Hey everyone, this is Lau, your friendly neighborhood server admin at Asgard Untamed. I find that I spend quite some time explaining how to use different mods to different people, so I've decided just to make a few quick videos to kind of go over all the different mods that we use on our server to help people, kind of get used to the server and make the most out of what we have installed. Today I'm going to cover Structures Plus. We're going to go over all the nifty little things that they've added recently that most people just don't even realize are there, and hopefully make your life a little bit easier. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to talk about is actually these buttons up here, which are probably some of the most useful and one of the things that most people don't realize about. So first of all, we have this little cloud down icon, which I think is supposed to be like a downloading from the cloud kind of thing. When you click on it over your own inventory, you get this little window which has a list of all sorts of possible crafting resources that you can pull from essentially all the inventories near you. You can see that it can take it from pretty much any object that has an inventory such as chests, smithies, and it can also, let me see if I can find a good example here, or not. It can also essentially pull things from your dinos as well. Here we go. You can see that one of my wyverns has some azul berries, so if I click on that, those become available. And then I can just either select a specific quantity that I want from one, or I can select all from another, and then I select pull, and then they just appear on my in my inventory. So that one's pretty straightforward. The other icon over here allows you to craft different things. So just to make it easy and straightforward, here I have the corpse finder. This number determines how many of that item you want to craft. So right now I only want to craft one of them, and it takes 1 stone. So if I click that, it's going to bring 1 stone into my inventory. There it is. If I click it again without having crafted before, it's going to tell me that I have everything I need. But then if I increase this to 5, and then I click it again, it's going to pull in the remaining resources that I need in order to craft 5 of them. And so that's pretty awesome. The next little bit, here we go, we have something that we can repair. See, we have this primitive Paladin Oathkeeper's blade from Party of 6, and it currently has some damage on it, and we want to repair it. Well, if I select it, it's highlighted, so as you can see it's highlighted here, we can click on this little icon up here, and it's going to go out and get all the resources we need to repair this to full health, and it's going to pull exactly what you need. It's not going to pull any extra, although there are a few things which are bugged. I'll kind of go over that in just a second. So that's pretty convenient. It's one of the most useful features that was added in S Plus, in my opinion. I know a lot of people didn't like it at first, but I personally think it's really useful. The next bit is that we can actually do pretty much the same thing here in a remote inventory. Now there is a little bit of a caveat. If you don't have anything selected in the remote inventory and you try to click this button, you're going to get a little warning saying that you need to select something in that remote inventory first. And that's just to help S Plus determine like where you are, what inventory you want to pull it to. It enables a pointer of sorts. So that now I can actually click this again, and we'll be greeted by that same window that we saw a little bit earlier in my own inventory. Now, for clarity, I'm actually going to select something else on the other inventory just so that I get this right message. If I go over to crafting, I can also select one of these engrams and then click it. So it doesn't actually have to be an item. It just has to be some object in that remote inventory in order to pull it. And then you have much the same usage from these other 2 buttons as you had on your personal inventory. We can craft any of these items. We can just tell it to pull the exact amount in order to craft it, or if we have something that's damaged, say these boots, we can tell it to bring something to repair it. In this case, everything's already in there, so it should tell us that everything's already in there. So pretty good stuff. There are some situations where it's a little bit bugged. I think that probably one of the best ways to illustrate this is with the cakes. So if you try to craft sweet vegetable cakes in the industrial, at the S Plus industrial cooker, you'll see that it requires giant bee honey. And if I tell it I want to craft one, it's going to pull everything, one for everything except for honey. For some reason, it just pulls a ridiculous amount of honey. Everything else, though, is the right quantity. So if I turn this on, it'll actually craft my cake. The other thing to note, for example, is let's say you wanted to craft, let's see here, something a little bit heavy. Let's say you wanted to craft like 100 stone foundations and you tell it to pull. It's going to pull enough to craft 2 because the mod decided that I only have enough weight to carry 2. Now that was probably accurate if this was in a, on a regular server. You probably couldn't carry this much stone and this much wood and stuff with as few points in weight as I do. However, with a stacking mod, that's no longer really a problem. I could actually bring more. The mod doesn't actually realize that, though, so it just brings in as much as it thinks you can carry. One of the things you can do to kind of get over this is, like I mentioned, if you have 100 up here, it's only going to pull up to 100 anyways. So one of the things that you can do is you can just keep clicking this button. It's going to keep bringing 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 1 until you finally have enough for 100, and then it's going to tell you that you have enough to craft the things that you wanted. To kind of go along with that, we have the transfer tool. The transfer tool by default is crafted with only a single thatch. I'm sorry, not the transfer tool. And it's really quite a nifty utility. When you pull it out and you fire on it, you get this nice little UI. And you can essentially determine the source of where you want to pull things. You can essentially say all structures, but you want to make sure that it only the name contains something like resources or something. Or you can say exclude all structures. Or maybe you can only exclude, I guess you can only exclude specific structures. You can also select your personal inventory, you can select all dinos, and you can also set specific dinos and tell them to include or exclude. For now, I'm just going to say my personal inventory. And this is essentially a list of all the items that it's detecting in all of our inventories. So it's quite a significant list, but it has a nice little filter utility. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it stone. I'm going to go down and find stone, and I'm going to want to get rid of all of the wood in my inventory. And I want to get rid of all the thatch in my inventory. Let's just go with that for the time being. Fiber. Let's also add fiber, just in case. So if I have any of these things in my personal inventory, I'm going to transfer them to my selected destination. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm going to select my metal storage box, and I'm going to select the name contains resources, because that's what I called my resource container. I hit transfer, and then it's going to show you that I transferred this many items. And it turns out I didn't have any fiber in my inventory, so it didn't do anything. It transferred a total of 1,500 items. If I look at my inventory, you'll see that all of the stuff that I transferred over in order to craft those foundations is now gone. And it's actually going to be here in my resources container. So that is actually quite useful. I actually like this tool quite a bit. Another thing that you can do is, for example, I can say from all my structures I want to find simple rifle ammo, and I want to put it into turrets. Now I don't actually think I have any turrets in this particular base, since this is my protected base, but let's say I wanted to put it in my in all of my small crop plots. Obviously this wouldn't work because ammo can't go into crop plots, but pretend that these were turrets instead. If I just left it like this, I could select transfer, and it's going to take all of the ammo from all of my inventories, including from those turret inventories, and it's going to split it evenly amongst all the turrets, or in this case crop plots, that it can find. So that's pretty useful in order to essentially fill all of your turrets at once, or fill all of your crop plots with fertilizer at once. It's quite handy. Now another thing that you can do is you can, if you set like a number here, for example 100, when you click transfer, sorry about that. When you click transfer, one of the things it's going to do, what it's going to do is it's going to essentially find all of the bullets, and then it's going to make sure that each inventory has 100. Each of these inventories, call them turrets, are going to have 100 of these items, so ammo. On the other hand, if I were to come over here and I were to select 100, then let's say that I have 5,000 inventories with ammo. Not really sure why you would have that, but it would actually pull a maximum of 100 from each of those inventories, and it would put them into each of your turrets. So if I had only 5 turrets, it would put let's see, 100 times what would we say, 5,000. So it'd take 500,000 and split it between 5 turrets, giving you 100,000 ammo per turret. Not sure if I probably forgot what numbers I used and maybe added a 0 here and there, but you kind of get the gist. Apart from that, you still have the transfer gun, which is right here, and for that I'll use our leftover items from the industrial cooker. So with left click, the gun essentially sets the source of where you're going to be pulling from. The transfer gun is essentially moving from one location to another. The cool thing now, since one of the recent updates, is that you can put the gun away and then you can pull it back up, and the source remains. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my fridge, and I'm going to shoot. I'm going to do a left click, and it's going to transfer all of the honey and the cake that was in there, and it's going to drop it into this refrigerator. So that's pretty convenient in order to transfer things from like one dino to different areas. Now all of these transfer tools from S Plus respect the limitations of your inventory. Like for example, only specific things are allowed to go into your refrigerator. So if you were to try to transfer armor, for example, into your refrigerator, it won't let you do that. It'll stay in the initial inventory. The reason that's particularly useful is, for example, if you come home and your dino has a whole bunch of meat and it has a whole bunch of armor, you can set the source to your dino. You can go over to your refrigerator, shoot it, and then you can then go over to like your gear box and shoot that, and then it'll finish transferring all the things that were in your dino over. So that's pretty useful as well. Apart from that, there's the remote tool, which is another newish gun. It allows you to turn different things on and off. For example, we have the animal tender over here. Right now you can see that it's activated. If I were to shoot it in the default mode, it'll deactivate it, or at least it should deactivate it. Obviously that didn't. Oh, here we go. It's in activate mode. I have to switch it over to deactivate mode. Then I can shoot it. It's turned off. I can shoot it again to turn it back on. Actually, I have to switch to activate mode. Turn it back on. And I think that was pretty ironic that it dropped as I shot it with the activate. And then if we go to door mode, as you can imagine, it allows you to open and close doors from a distance. So that can be pretty useful if you're flying and you have like a big behemoth gate that you want to open remotely. Now one of the things is that it doesn't work on everything. For example, I can't click on I can't shoot or activate the elevator. So it doesn't work on all things. Then we have the light setter. For those of you who do not know, this works both on S Plus torches as well as the lights. I have no idea where our light sources are coming from, actually, which is kind of weird. But it's useful in order to change like the hues that you have from the different light sources. You can set it to different colors, you can set it to different intensities, and you know, essentially you change the way that your base looks just by changing the light. Where the transparency cycler, if we go over to our different base, to kind of give you an explanation of how this works. If we pull out the transparency cycler, we can aim at one of these glass walls. We can shoot it, and we can change whether it's a one-way or a two-way glass. We can also set a specific opacity for the glass. If we then right-click on that glass, it'll save the settings. If we right-click again, it'll clear it. If we save the settings, then the next time we shoot or use left trigger, instead of pulling up that menu, it's just going to set it to the settings that you had on the one that you saved. So that's pretty useful. Which then kind of goes along with model selector. These guns have been around for a while, so most of you probably know what they are. But with the model selector on these glass walls, you can select like no sides, so that it doesn't have the borders. You can select one border, you can select three, you can select corners, and essentially do that. And so that's actually how you get some of these, like what they kind of look like one-piece glass walls. So the next thing I want to show you is essentially how to automate quite a bit of your base using S+. To start out, we're going to want to show you how to use the item collector. The item collector, as its name might indicate, starts collecting different things. In this case, you can show that this one is collecting feces. It'll collect all the feces that dinos drop within its range. You can tell it to show the range, and you can see it's actually fairly large. It can collect all sorts of different things. It can collect pearls, it can collect paste, eggs, and poop. This one we only have collecting poop because we use it for our garden, and I'll show you how that works in a second. We have poop distribution enabled, and again I'll show you how that works. And you can also select which types of poop you want it to collect. Right now we have it collecting everything. Now these can be powered by two different means. You can either power it with propellant, which you can craft normally here on Ragnarok, or you can power it with a tech generator. Almost all of the S+ automation tools can be also powered by a tech generator. Now, when you have poop distribution turned on, it'll actually put poop into your compost bin. And it'll also feed one poop of each type into each of your dung beetles. Let me see if I can. Oh, I guess these walls are keeping me from seeing their inventory. But essentially, if it has like one medium poop, one small poop, one human poop, it'll put one of each into a dung beetle's inventories. The reason why it does one of each is because a dung beetle can actually work on one of each different size of poop at a time. So they're actually a really great way of getting a fertilizer. And by only putting one of each poop, it can make sure that as soon as one poop gets consumed, it can just fill that one again without one getting all backed up or being overweight so that it can't move and therefore stops producing. Now with the compost bin, as you can see, it does not bring in any thatch on its own. You actually can use this little guy, of course, to bring in thatch, and you can see that in this case it only shows thatch because that's the only thing that you can add in here apart from feces. So that's pretty useful. Now let's say you didn't have an item collector to distribute your poop, but you still had containers full of poop that you picked up by hand. You can still use your transfer tool in order to select the multiple different types of feces available and put them into your dung beetles and into your compost bins. So that's pretty nice and useful. Going on with our farm, we're going to go down here. We're going to say hi to the farmer. Now, the farmer lives on caliente soup, or Callian soup, I'm sorry, and or it can also work on tech generators, and ours is actually working on tech generators. You can see that it's working on tech generator because it says powered down at the bottom. To double check it, you can also deactivate it, and then you can activate it again. If it's not powered, then it will not reactivate unless it has Callian soup in there. So let me put the soup away. Now, what does the farmer do? The farmer collects fertilizer from your dung beetles and from your compost bins, and then it fills, it evenly distributes the fertilizer into all of your different crop plots that we have up there. And it'll fill anything that inherits from that crop plot base object. What do I mean by that is we also have another mod on here, which is the Redwoods Anywhere. That has its own type of crop plot, which is huge, and all it grows are the massive trees that we have. This guy will actually fill that crop plot with a ridiculous amount of fertilizer. So that's pretty useful. Then we have the Gardner. The Gardner runs on beer, or again, tech generator. And what it does is it collects all of the berries and the seeds from your crop plots. Now, just be aware, she does have a bit of a little bit more of a controlled, smaller area of effect than the item collector, for example. I believe that his is about the same. I think his looks a little bit bigger than the Gardner's. Anyway, let's hide the range. So she also helps. She can also help keep things fresh. I believe you can put salt, preserving salt. There you go. Let's pull 5 of these. I'll get into that mod at a later time. But yeah, you can put your preserving salts in her inventory, and they'll make sure that it'll increase the spoil time of the items in her inventory. And of course, you can also take your transfer gun. You can set her as the source, and you can put her into your refrigerator. And now all of the berries that she had have now been put in the refrigerator. And for some reason, seeds are also refrigeratable. So all of your seeds will also go in there as well. Which is pretty nice, especially since some mods like to use seeds in order to do certain crafting. So that covers these two guys. Let's actually go over here. I have another item collector I just want to show you. This item collector is set to pretty much collect anything else. So it's collecting the Achatina paste that is being pooped out by our Achatina. It will not collect the stuff that's inside of their inventories, but we have something else for that. It'll also pick up the silica pearls that the phoenix poop out, as well as eggs. It will not collect fertilized eggs, I believe, or maybe it will unless you have a hatchery. I'm kind of leaning towards I don't think it does pick up fertilized eggs at all. Now let's go look at the animal herder, which is this animal tender, which is this bunny right here. The animal tender will go into the inventories of your dinos or your critters, and it'll pull those things out. So you see it's pulling out oils from either the Basilosaurus or from the giant squids. It's pulling out the Achatina paste from the Achatina's inventory that they're generating, and it's also pulling out the organic polymer that the Achatina are creating. So it's going to pull out things that are generated inside of your dino's inventory. And then we have the sheep herder, which, as long as you have, again, it runs on meat or tech energy. Oh, and this guy runs on kibble, or again, tech fuel, tech generator. The kibble, I recommend, just build just craft a bunch of the dodo egg kibble, and this guy will run for quite a while. I do not know if different kibbles last for different amounts. I would hope that it would, but I haven't tried it. I personally feel that the dodo kibble works out just fine, especially if you have a pretty decent farm. Anyway, go back to the sheep herder. The sheep herder, as you could probably surmise, it's collecting all of these, all of this wool, which is really great if you want to create your fur armor at some point. Here we have all of our sheep that it's shearing. I feel one more thing that is actually quite useful. In order to do this, you're either going to want to use a bug spray, which is what I'm going to use. I think you can also use a full set of that leafy armor, the ghillie suit armor, in order to avoid the bugs, and I'll show you what happens if you don't have that on. Let's just get some bug repellent from all structures. I only want one. Into my inventory. Transfer. Alright, so now we have some bug repellent on. Let's go all the way up to the top. So quick note, I don't know when this happened, but the S Plus Africanized Bee Hive no longer actually requires a beehive in order to be crafted. I'm not sure if that's going to change, or maybe it's something that we changed in our own settings. I don't think it is. Now, the beehive runs on rare flowers, and this cannot run on tech generator. You always have to keep it full of rare flowers, otherwise the health starts to go down and starts dying. It crafts giant bee honey for you, which is nice. But the other really useful thing, the reason that I have it more than anything else, is that it'll actually water all of your crops within its area of effect. So you do not need to have all sorts of different pipes running in your base. You can actually just have a beehive. As long as you're keeping it healthy with rare flower, it'll keep your crop plots happy and full of and irrigated. The hatchery is actually one of the things that I love the most. The hatchery will pick up fertilized eggs, and it'll keep them in its inventory, and it works like a really good refrigerator for fertilized eggs. It runs either on tech energy or it'll run on refertilizer fuel. Now, one of the things that it does is once it picks up an egg, it'll incubate it at an increased speed, and it'll keep it at 1%. So it will not hatch it. Then you can take the fertilized egg out, drop it anywhere, and as long as it's at 1%, this guy won't pick it up again. And so then you only have to wait like maybe a minute or two for even the largest eggs for them to hatch. At least on our servers, we have, I think, 5x hatching. In vanilla, it'd be a little bit longer, but again, not much longer than that. Now, one of the things that I have noticed with the hatchery, if it's running off of refertilizer, your best bet in order to ensure that the incubation speed is correct is that when the server restarts, you need to deactivate it and reactivate it again. I have not experienced this with the tech generator. But I think it's a bug that might get fixed at some point in the future. So yeah, this guy is pretty useful. Now, one of the things is that you cannot put a fertilized egg in here. You can't put anything in here. In order for an egg to appear in this inventory, you have to drop it out into the world. So that's important to know. So now we have the Nanny, which is probably one of my favorite additions. She acts like a trough for babies, and we keep her filled with Rami and Savaru, or Rami and berries. She runs on honey, or again, she can also run on tech generator. And what she does two different things. The first thing she does is that she keeps babies fed. Now, when I say babies in this case, I actually mean babies. As soon as they're a juvenile or adolescent, she will no longer feed them. You will need to make sure that there is a feeding trough in the area from which they can feed themselves. The next thing she does is that she will automatically imprint as they get older. As soon as a dino reaches a percentage of growth, like let's say 10%, she will imprint 1% higher. So at 10%, she will make sure that the baby has 11% imprint. In that way, if her setting is to imprint all the way up to 100, she will actually at growth percentage of 99%, it'll set the imprint at 100%, and you're pretty much done. You really don't have to do any imprinting apart from that. However, on our server, she's at 80% imprint. She will not imprint beyond 80%. And if we look over here at one of our Rexes, we see its imprint stopped at 80%. Now, an important thing to note about her is that she will only imprint up to that percentage. It does not mean she will imprint 80%. She will imprint up to 80%. So if you imprint on a dino while it's like, for example, 25% imprint, and it goes up to 50, then she will stop imprinting that dino until it's at 51% growth. And I'm sorry, until it's at 51% growth, and it'll 50% growth. It'll turn it up to 51% imprint. So essentially, you're sort of wasting her and wasting imprint resources for any imprinting that you do prior to that 80% limit. We actually have a kind of a way around that if you miss that 80% imprint on the server. We'll get to that in just a minute. But what you can do is, if you stick around long enough for your dinos to get up to that 80% mark, and leave, she will not use up the little the imprint mini games. So they'll still have the I want to cuddle, or I want to walk, or I want a specific kibble. If you leave that there, as soon as it hits 80%, you can use that in order to get like another 10 or 15% imprint, and then you only have to imprint once more after that. So that's fairly useful. I will reiterate again. This is very important. She will only feed babies. If you do not have a trough that feeds your adolescents and your juveniles, they will starve. The other thing to note about S Plus on our server is that the S Plus intake pipes, the metal intake pipe and the stone intake pipes, those work regardless of water source. So if you were to take one of those intakes and you were to put it right here in this just block of stone, it'll think that it has a water source attached to it, and so you can just you can just create short pipes in order to feed a water barrel, a tap, your toilet, and of course your industrial cookers and things like that. They're actually quite useful in that sense. But I also want to cover these glass walls. Now, note that these are glass half walls. But if you have glass walls or glass ceilings from S Plus, those are not the same thing as greenhouse walls and ceilings. S Plus also has greenhouse items. However, do note that these glass walls, they have the strength of metal walls. However, they also produce the greenhouse effect. So that makes them fairly useful. And as you could see earlier, we can change the transparency so that they're only clear in one direction. That does not affect greenhouse effect, by the way. And well, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. It'll add greenhouse effect to your crops, which makes them run up to 3 times faster. And so you can see here, greenhouse effect down at the bottom, 300%. So that's pretty cool things. The blueprint maker, this is supposed to be able to, like, for example, you can take a any structure, you should be able to put it in there and turn it into a blueprint, like you saw there. I do not think that it works with items. It's not. This is actually not an S+ structure, so you can see it still works with those. And then you also have the S+ converter, which should allow you to convert to vanilla and to S+. However, and let me see if I can bring a something that is, here we go, vanilla. I'm going to bring one of these. So this is a vanilla foundation, with stone foundation, which technically I should be able to click convert all to S+, and it should change it. For me, it does not work, and I do not know why. Now for my tribe mate reptile, she can click convert, and these buttons work for her all the live long day. But for me, it just ignores me completely. Why? I don't know. I can be the one that places it. I can pick it up. She could be the one that places it, and I can try to use it. It does not work for me particularly, and I have no idea why. Maybe it has to do because I'm the tribe admin and the tribe creator, and it has some sort of logic that might be flawed there. I can't be sure, but the converter, again, it works for some people. It doesn't work for everyone. The last kind of bit of information is that the S+ feeding troughs can be set to only feed specific things. You can set specific exclusions, or you can set specific inclusions. This one is our overall feed everything, and this one we have set to only feed the Acatinas. You can see that it's an inclusion. It's only allowing them to eat the cakes. Now, I actually think that's probably everything. There are a few more tech items that I haven't gone over. Most of them I don't actually have access to. I haven't played with them, so I can't really go into that much detail. But I kind of feel that this covers most of the things that you'll be dealing with on day to day. If you feel like I've missed something or have any questions about S+ things that I didn't cover, please let me know. I would be happy to go over them with you. And I can also make add-on videos to cover that information. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you found this useful. I will, of course, be covering all of the other mods that are on this server to kind of give you a walkthrough of everything, of how this server is really meant to run, meant to be played. Here at Asgard Untamed, one of the things that we try to do is reduce the amount of grinding and wait time, like downtime, and just kind of get to playing. We prefer to have reward preparation and reward active gameplay, as opposed to just living ARK. This is not a you have to live ARK kind of environment. And we also want to make sure that you're able to get, if you lose or win in PvP, that you're able to get back on your feet as quickly as possible. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying the server, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if there's anything else that you want me to cover in any specific order, and thanks for watching.